All right, we're going to have everybody back in just about 3 minutes. Those of you that are here, I presume you can see my screen, hopefully. If you cannot give me a screen, please let me know somehow. Welcome, Brian. We are currently in our networking session. It is wrapping up and we are about ready to start the meeting. Oh, where'd everybody go? I think they're going to be here in just a minute. We should have everybody back in here. Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed networking. And I'm going to go ahead and get this thing moving along here. Just a hair above schedule, or that's better than being behind. Let's start going through our slides. And we just went through our networking session there. Again, I'm going to remind you that down at the bottom of your bar and Zoom, you're going to see a little chat button right there. So if you would click on that chat button and add to that your name, who you're with, if you have a company, your phone number, your email address, and your location. And at the end of the evening, you can go in there and download that file so that you can get everybody's information. So I always like to start the evening and give homage to Gene Guarino. In memory of Gene Guarino, Gene was instrumental in the founding of the REL Academy, the REL National Association, and had introduced thousands of people to the model of residential assisted living. His motto was do good and do well. And we certainly miss Gene. We lost him in 2021, but Gene was the catalyst that got me involved, and I always respect what he did. And certainly if it wasn't for Gene, I think a lot of people would not be in this industry. On our website, we've got it's http://dollar.com. It's kind of funny how that acronym sounds, because you know, it's the dollar is just the side effect that we get from helping people, but we always encourage people to go here. Particularly if you are in Colorado, you want to go here and go to this link right here. It's the helpful links. If you are operating in Colorado, we've got some direct links right there to things that you need to know, which is the Chapter 7 and the Chapter 2. These are the regulations in Colorado. And they're a little hard to find on the state website, so we put direct links there. There's a lot of other links in that page as well that we've kind of dug up and put into one spot, so they're a little easier to find. But if you are operating in Colorado, you need to know these regulations like the back of your hand. We also encourage everybody to join the Facebook page, which is Denver ALR. And this is just your typical social media. So the more people on there, the better it is. And we thank everybody for signing up through Meetup. This gives us an idea of how many people to expect, and it's a good platform to communicate with you. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about our sponsors that we have. And we certainly appreciate all of their contributions to help us continue to do what we're doing. We'll start with Hall Ryan Construction. With 35 years of combined construction experience, the exceptional team at Hall Ryan Construction has transformed residential and commercial properties by bringing a high-touch, customer-centric approach to every engagement. On the insurance side, Hall Ryan's reconstruction and roofing expertise is a skill that many insurance companies actively seek out. Their reliance on Hall Ryan's experience in helping them write estimates has made Hall Ryan a well-respected, trusted expert in the field. And next, we would like to talk a little bit about Palm University and Brett Chutkavis. He's put together a really nice program for the high-end 16-bed model. They kind of go off of what they call memory mansions. So they're really nice properties. On his website is a great collection of training videos. If you are in this industry and learning about it, he's got super informative videos on that website, and they're geared toward the experienced operators. So, you know, we can all learn more. So navigate to palm.university to get more information about that. And next we have the RAL National Association, the Residential Assisted Living National Association represents the interests of small business, small assisted living providers. Their mission is to help small assisted living homes get the resources that they need and give them a voice at the national level and improve the quality of service delivery through the industry. With a national industry professional base, RALNA offers robust benefits to investors, owners, managers, caregivers alike. And we happen to have Brian Pinkowski, the president, here with us. Brian, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. There's a national convention coming up here in the in early October, and if you're not signed up for that, you're missing out because it's a lot of fun. You'll have, if you're looking for potential partners while also learning something about new opportunities and new directions, technology, etc. in the business, it's the thing to go to. And on top of that, it's just a whole lot of fun. And it's in October in Phoenix before it gets cold. Can I say it gets cold in Phoenix? Anyway. But it's a lot of fun and very educational. And I don't know if I should talk about the Academy right now or not.
Well, that's my next slide. So if you want to segue into that.
Sure. If you're not familiar with the Residential Assisted Living Academy, you definitely should be. As an attorney, I'll tell you that our most likely to succeed clients are people who've gone through the academy. And at the highest level, what they call the platinum members or inner circle, those people are definitely the most likely to succeed. And then the next most likely are the ones who do the 3-day event in person. And then the next most are the ones who do the online version. And it's targeted on what you need to know to operate and be successful in this business. And there's lots of things to know about providing care, but fundamentally it is a business, and you need to be able to come in with your eyes open to handle that properly. Otherwise, you can't provide the services that you want to provide. So I strongly recommend participation in those programs.
Awesome, Brian. I couldn't have said it better myself. We have a link on our website directly to them. You can see that highlighted at the top. And next, we will talk about the assisted living marketing with more than a decade of experience. They have customized services that work for small, large, and multi-location communities. Assisted living marketing is your trusted partner for digital in print marketing in the assisted living industry. I'll give them a plug as well. I use Peter for my own websites, and I actually have him building another website for me right now for a business that I'm starting up with my son in Texas. So whenever I need a website, I give Peter a call, and he takes very good care of me. He does a great job. I've worked with web designers for 25 years now, and I'll tell you, he's the most responsive guy that I've worked with in that time frame. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about senior care administrative coaching. And this is Janet Cornell, and her website is right there at scac-janet.com. So Janet provides consulting for your assisted living home here in Colorado. She can also provide 40-hour administrative training, staff training, employee file compliance, and compliant documents. She also does mock surveys. So if you're operating here in Colorado and you don't want to be hit by a survey from the state that is not pretty, then hire Janet to come do a mock survey. She'll walk through, tell you everything that you need to fix, and you don't get written up by her, and you can get it fixed so that when the state does show up, that you're going to pass with flying colors. So again, Janet Cornell, scac-janet.com. And next, we're going to talk a little bit about the investment community of the Rockies. ICOR is their acronym, and ICOR is Colorado's only nationally recognized and award-winning real estate investor association, serving the Denver Metro, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, and Northern Colorado, as well as real estate and rental property investors across the state. If you are an investor in Colorado, this is a group you definitely want to be a part of. I've been a part of them for over 10 years. They're a great group, and I think probably the best real estate investment association in Colorado. Next, we will talk about, and I'm going to let them speak for themselves, and this is Colorado Assisted Living Lawyers, but not just Colorado. And who would like to take this, Brian or Michelle Pankowski?
Oh, I can take it. Thanks, Vern. Yeah, so Vern, as Vern said, we're assisted living lawyers. This is what we do all the time, especially for the small assisted living community. And I think as far as the convention goes, Brian brought up the Residential Assisted Living National Convention. You can meet all kinds of people there. In fact, the very first one that was ever held, we met Vern, and we've been friends and doing business ever since, back in 2017. So it's definitely a place to meet people. And one of the reasons that we love working with Vern and his clients is because he is an expert in this field. And that's what it takes, because there's a lot of nuances for assisted living, which you can definitely get through if you have the right people on your team. So that's what we do. And we work with people in Colorado on the whole spectrum of assisted living, from the buying to licensing and operations. And then we work with people around the country through your local lawyers for finding the right location and buying the business and other things. So that's what we do. Thanks, Vern.
You bet. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate the kind words. And that might segue me into our group, A Better Way Funding, where we do lease options for group homes. And our website that kind of describes that program is ralleaseoptions.com. And while we're talking about ourselves, I'll chat a little bit about my business, Grand Avenue Business Brokers at A Better Way Realty, where I hang my license. I've got over 30 years of business experience. I've done over 60 assisted living transactions, over $100 million in transactions. I am a certified business intermediary, which I specialize in just assisted living. We have a few deals going on right now. This will be kind of interesting. We are bringing to auction 89 beds in Eastern Colorado. This is going to auction in mid-July. Right now we have under contract, and we are taking investors for a few properties. One's 16 beds, private pay in North Metro. Another one is 12 beds northwest of Denver. And another one is 118 beds in Scottsdale. So if you're interested in investing with our group, then you can give me a shout out later on and we can talk about what that looks like. Transactions that we've done in the last 8 months, I guess, maybe within the year. 56 beds we did in Southeast Metro Denver, another 46 beds in Northwest Denver, and a small one, 8 beds on the Western Slope. And I was just informed of a small 6-bed mental illness one in South Denver. The operator is looking to just sell the business, but there is an option to buy the real estate in that deal. If you have any questions, there's my number, 303-888-0078. And next, we like to wrap it up with news from the Colorado Assisted Living Association. And Brian, would you like to tell us what's going on?
Oh, there's not a whole lot happening right now. I'm happy to say that that we were successful getting a law passed that you guys have all heard something about last time we met, and we're just waiting. I think everybody's taking a breath. It was a busy legislative session for us. We're meeting every week, and it was tough. So now we're going around from place to place in the various districts to meet with assisted living providers in each of these places. But for right now, things are relatively quiet. If you're not a member of the Colorado Association of Assisted Living Residences, then you definitely ought to be, because it's the only group in the state that's working for your assisted living rights and actually negotiating with the department on a daily basis, participating in the ALAC committee, the Assisted Living Advisory Committee, and basically trying to put pressure on the department to be responsive to some of the concerns about assisted living providers. So they're supporting you. Strongly encourage you to support them.
Thank you, Brian. And with no more further ado, I'd like to introduce those of you who don't know Michelle Pinkowski and Michelle and Brian. They're very involved in the assisted living arena, as you've seen from our introductions tonight. And Michelle's insight has been proven very valuable, Brian's too, to us here at the Dollar community, plus countless of other operators throughout the nation. And it has been a real pleasure to know these two. And we've kind of made it a tradition every time we go to the convention to end up having dinner one of those nights, which is how we met, was at dinner. So it's always fun, and I'm looking forward to whatever dinner we have this year. Michelle, would you like to take over?
Sure. Did I share my screen then?
You may.
Okay. So when I share my screen, the way my computer works is I won't be able to see all of you, but feel free to jump in, okay? And also, even though I'm a Colorado girl, Colorado lawyers, I'm on the other side of the world right now. So it's 7 a.m. and I have not had my caffeine. So if I stumble over my words, just be patient with me. But I think you're going to find this pretty interesting. For those of you in Colorado, and for those of you who aren't in Colorado, I do still think you're going to get something out of this, because there are some universal principles here, and we're going to talk about the Fair Housing Act as well and how it interplays with local zoning just a little bit. But for now, I do want to be very Colorado specific, but just know I think that this is going to be coming to, this kind of law is going to be coming to other states. So hopefully this might be something that you can look for in your state or advocate for it. But this is, I think Colorado is really leading the way here. So there's a new act in Colorado called the Home Act. And it does have an impact on group homes, even though the Colorado legislature didn't specifically say that. So a lot of people are kind of overlooking it. And it's a very short law. It's on one page, but it's a very, very important one for our industry in Colorado for the small group. And I'm going to talk about group homes. That encompasses any home, a residential size home for people with disabilities, which might be assisted living, it might be recovery homes, it might be homes for people with brain injuries. I'm going to lump all of that under the label of group homes. Okay, so just know that they have different titles around the country and even around Colorado, even when it comes to the city, but we're going to call it group homes for today. As you've heard over and over already in this intro, we're lawyers, but we're not providing you legal advice. We're lawyers for many of you on this call, which I really appreciate. And we really like seeing all of our clients here. This particular presentation is not legal advice, so. Okay, so what is this HOME Act? And I love the acronym. Whoever comes up with acronyms at the state capitol, kudos on this one. It stands for the Harmonizing Occupancy Measures Equitably Act. And it was signed by Governor Polis in April, but it doesn't go into effect until July 1st, which is just around the corner. Believe it or not, we're halfway through the year. This goes into effect on, Monday. And what it does is it prohibits local occupancy limits based on familial relationships. So if any of you have read a zoning code or you've heard in, discussions in the neighborhood or whatever, you might have heard something like, oh, only any number of people who are related can live in this home, or up to 2 or 3 or 4 people who aren't related. And the main purpose behind this, we're having, like around the country, in Colorado, we're having a housing shortage, extreme housing shortage. And this HOME Act was really designed to allow more people, non-disabled people is what the original intent was, I think. The students, roommates, people who are looking to reduce their housing costs, to allow more of those people to live in a single family home, because a lot of communities, like where our office is in Boulder, it was very restrictive. They're like, well, we don't want these homes with a bunch of students in there. So they would do enforcement and say, no, you can only have 3 unrelated people or 4 unrelated people. So maybe that sounds familiar to people. What the HOME Act does, instead of basing the restrictions on whether you're related or not, it bases the restrictions on a more logical standard, which is health and safety standards. How much space do you need for people to live together in a safe and hygienic way? So that is the question now in Colorado. There we go. I love this quote from the governor, who says, it's not the government's business who your roommates are, which is exactly what cities and when I talk about local governments, I'm talking about the jurisdictions that have the authority to do zoning. So it could be, in Colorado, we call them cities or towns or counties. Every piece of property in Colorado has zoning by somebody. So you have to figure out who that somebody is. Other places, like if we were in Ohio, for example, you might have a township. On the East Coast, there might be villages, whatever it's called, whoever has authority to zone. But in Colorado, our local governments have been getting into the business of figuring out who you can live with and who you can't. And so that's why the governor said, now officially the government is out of that business. You get to choose who you get to live with. So all of those restrictions about, it's kind of the acronym or the shorthand version is U+2 or U+3. So U+2 unrelated people. That's now out the window in Colorado. And that applies on its face, or in the discussions, it applies to roommates, students, like I said, anybody who just wants to live together. However, there can be restrictions for health and safety standards that are, and this is a key word in this statute, demonstrated health and safety standards. So what does that mean? It means recognized building codes, like the International Building Code, recognized fire code. By the way, the International Building Code does have minimum square footage for people. So there is already a baseline standard. And most places have adopted the International Building Code or the International Residential Code. So if it's something like that, fire code, things like probably people have to have a window access, a bedroom, all bedrooms always have to have windows. And as a former litigator, I can tell you that really is important. Sometimes we think about, are these standards really important? But there was a really awful fire case in our office where a young disabled man was in a basement room that had a window but only had bars in it. And that's where he died when the fire came. So these things are for real. There's a reason for these health and safety standards. So, but it has to be demonstrated. So establish fire codes or just establish standards from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, our favorite department. They, in addition to regulating assisted living, they regulate things like wastewater. If you're on a septic, for example, how big does your septic have to be for the number of occupants you have? So those kinds of things. So how does that affect assisted living residences, which brings us back. This is why we're all here. How does it affect assisted living residences? Well, I can tell you that a huge part of my practice is clients saying, hey, either how many people can I have in my home, or the city told me I can only have X number of people. Say the city said I can only have 6 people. I can't make it work with 6. Of course, in this day and age, we know how properties are more expensive, workers are more expensive, the price of things is going up. You can't make it work with 6 a lot of times. So that's what people come and they say, how do I get more? And now in Colorado, the question is that answer is really, really easy. Because before the Home Act, when it came to group homes, in addition to trying to limit like groups of students, cities and towns and counties tried to limit the number of people in a group home, either by using that family definition that I talked about, like the U+2, or they would have definitions of group homes that would say, have some occupancy limits, say up to 8. Or they would put other restrictions on, like our favorite, I don't know if Sioma is back on the call, Fort Collins had all kinds of restrictions. If you wanted to have a group home in Fort Collins, you had to have an actual larger lot. And we always got exceptions to that using the Fair Housing Act, but they would either do lot size or say you have to be within, not less than 1,500 feet from the next group home, or sometimes half a mile from the next group home. So they tried to put a lot of limits on residents and where you could be. Now in Colorado, however, the Home Act, in my opinion, removes these barriers. The Home Act doesn't specifically refer to group homes, okay? But here's the question for you. If a local government cannot restrict the number of people who live in, let's call it a regular home, right? A regular non-assisted living, non-group home. If the local government can't restrict the number of people who live in a regular home, then why should they be able to restrict the number of people that live in your group home? So actually, I can see you. Finally, my computer, I must have updated or something. So I see. Does anybody know why this is? If you've been on my talks before, why is this true? Even though the Home Act doesn't say it, and maybe I think cities and counties in Colorado don't realize this yet, but they're going to on Monday, because I have a whole bunch of letters that are about to go out to them. I can't wait. So does anybody want to raise their hand and tell me why this is true? That if you can't restrict the number of people in a regular home, why can't you restrict the number of people in your assisted living home? Anybody? Okay, well, I know you know this. So I'll give you the answer. Oh, James, do you want to say?
I try. The Fair Housing Act requires you to allow people with disabilities to live in the same areas that they live in, or that people without disabilities live in.
Yes, you're the
Is that
expert on this
technical
topic
answer?
now. Yes,
I'm very
excellent.
with this topic. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, James. And James is coming from Indiana, some beautiful forest in Indiana. So thanks for helping us with that answer. That's exactly right. So your residents, you know, a lot of people, if you talk to your HOA or you talk to your city, they're like, well, you're a commercial operation, or you're a business. No, you're a home for people who have disabilities. Your residents, if you have an assisted living home, then it's pretty much a given that your residents are recognized as people with disabilities because they have physical or mental impairments that impact their ability to engage in various life activities. So that means that they're protected by state and federal anti-discrimination laws. In Colorado, we have a Fair Housing Act. There's a federal Fair Housing Act. There's the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. There's another act called the Rehabilitation Act. So a lot of states like Colorado have their own Fair Housing Act. So just like James said, if any number of non-disabled people can now live in a single family dwelling, all of these acts say that that has to be applied equally to people with disabilities. It's just very cut and dry. We're still subject to health and safety standards. Okay, so the Home Act specifically says that. And this is where I want you to always remember, because I know this is confusing. Remember that there's a difference between zoning and your state regulator. So cities and states in Colorado are now going to start getting savvy about this, and they're going to start figuring out what health and safety requirements they want to impose on general living situations or group living situations. For now, except for one, nobody has addressed that at the local level. But, excuse me. In Colorado, of course, you know that we have to be licensed by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and there are their own regulations. Vern put them on the screen at the start. So the minimum square footage of the International Residential Code, for example, might be less, and I do believe it is less, than what the department says is a minimum for group homes. So you're going to have to comply with both of those things, whichever is the most restrictive is the one you should plan on. So for example, if the International Building Code says you only need 60 square feet per person in a single room, but the state regulator says you need 80 square feet per person, which it does, you need to comply. You need to have 80 square feet per person. Also, remember in Colorado, we have to comply with the FGI standards, the Facility Guideline Institute Design Standards for residential buildings. So that's another standard that the state is going to impose, even if your local government doesn't say it. So don't get confused. It's not a free-for-all now in Colorado. We still have to comply with the regulations. But when it comes to local governments telling you how many people should be in the home, it's got to be on those demonstrated health and safety standards. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions up to this point?
I actually do, Michelle. Hi, it's Sioma.
Hi, Sioma.
Hi. I was just wondering, so how does this differ from, well, you know, our situation. Does this mean that obviously we've had 2 residents now for almost 3 years while we're waiting for construction and all that? Does this mean that we're allowed to bring in another one? Or is our situation, because we haven't done the construction and all that, are we still needing to stick with our 2?
Well, and this is where the difference, so the Home Act applies only to the local zoning. So under the local zoning, and I'm going to talk about Fort Collins, Steelman is in Fort Collins, Colorado. Fort Collins is leading the state on complying with this act. So from the city's perspective now, they don't have any say in that anymore. But you still have to comply with the licensing requirement, which says this: you need your license to get the 3.
Okay,
get more
that's
than
what I
2.
thought. So for
Does
us,
that make sense?
we still have to wait for our license to be able to bring in another person. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And everybody else, thank you for raising that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So everybody else on this call needs to wait for the license too. So what happens is you get permission from the local government. In this case, we have to look at it, and I don't know how local governments are going to react to this now. We're about to find out next week when all of my letters go out. But whether they're going to require any kind of planning permission or anything, it's always good. But when you apply for your license in Colorado and in other places too, but definitely in Colorado, you have to have a form and a sign off by the local zoning official that says you comply with all zoning. So I don't know. I need to get in touch. I will get in touch with the department next week and see if they're going to still be requiring that. But for now, we need to approach the local planning department with the state licensing packet form and say, please sign off on this form saying that we comply with the zoning requirements. So that's why we have to remember to keep zoning in one bucket and licensing in another bucket, because
Right.
they overlap, but they're different.
Okay, okay.
So just a quick update. I've been monitoring this issue very, very closely since it was signed in April, but doesn't go into effect until July. So we've had a little time, and I've been trying to keep on top of what's going on with all of the cities and counties and towns in Colorado, but that's a big job. And it doesn't always hit the Google News alert that I have for it. So something might be different in your location, and we would have to look into it, but I can give you the update. So the city of Boulder has not made any amendments to its zoning code yet, but it's working on it. But they have a full page on their website that says they're not doing any enforcement. So they will no longer be taking enforcement actions based on the number of people that are living in a home. At least right now, while they're reviewing how they're going to write their code. Boulder County kind of did a hybrid thing, and I provided comments to this because they changed their definition of family to remove reference to related people, but they didn't change their definition of group home. So they are now on notice from our law firm saying, this is a fair housing issue, and if you make this change, which they're about to, their zoning code will be in violation of the Fair Housing Act on its face. But I listened to the Planning Commission hearing the other night, and they're aware of the issue. I think they're going to be taking action to actually make their zoning code compliant because they seemed inclined to do that. The city of Fort Collins, which Sioma and I know very well, I've had a
That's
number
for
of
sure.
cases in yeah, Sioma had to go through back in the old days the old days after next Monday, had to go through the planning commission hearing and the city council hearing just to get approved for 10. And if her case were brought up next week, that wouldn't have to happen. So Fort Collins, I think because we've worked so closely with them on a number of things, they had a very unfortunate zoning code that did violate the Fair Housing Act because it had not only it made you go through a lot of planning approval actions, but it had this lot restriction, it had spacing restrictions. Now that has officially been changed. The city council has adopted the new zoning code. All of that's gone. So all of those restrictions on group homes are gone.
Wow.
I can't remember what health and safety standards. I think they just adopted the building code standards. So that's what's happened in Colorado so far. I do expect there to be more movement, but honestly, I think a lot of cities and counties have just not been keyed up on this issue yet. So we're going to be seeing more throughout the end of the year, I'm quite sure. So again, this is who we are. It's our contact information. It's also in the chat. And I do miss our mountains because I'm very far away from them right now. So I wanted to include this picture so I felt like home. If you want the slides, you can scan that.
Where are you, Michelle, right now? Where are you?
I am in Asia. I'm in Sri Lanka, which is a little island below India.
I feel so sorry for you.
Yeah, it's
really. No, I'm teasing, but seriously, but I know you're excited to get that letter out to everybody and see what happens. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So, no, thank you for sharing. This was really interesting. Thank you. I agree with you. I don't think the majority have any idea what's to come.
No. So let me add something. And Sioma, if you don't mind me sharing this, in Sioma's situation, for example, even though next week she wouldn't have to deal with the city, her home is in an HOA. So
Right.
we still have to deal with HOAs, and hers is the first HOA that I've ever seen that actually has it allows group homes. Of course, every HOA has to allow group homes, right? We know this. But it sets an occupancy restriction of 8 people. So we had to request a reasonable accommodation to that HOA covenant. That's not affected by the Home Act, and we would have to do further analysis. And I think we're going to have some arguments there with HOAs, but most HOAs don't have that occupancy restriction. So, but just know that that's another bucket. So we've got
Boy.
zoning, we've got the licensing, and we've got HOAs, and Sioma's been dealing with a
We've
lot
had
of
the
buckets.
triple whammy.
Well,
Oh,
it's gonna be
but thanks.
interesting. Yeah.
Thank you to you and Brian, Michelle, because without you guys, we wouldn't even be here. So again, thank you so much. But yes, we've got the triple whammy.
But we made it through, and you're going to be open.
Yes, we have, and we will make it through all the way. We're putting our head down and keep
Yeah.
it, keeping going.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions?
I've got a question, Michelle. So hypothetically, I guess, if you had a group home and let's say you had a bunch of college students in it with 8 people, would you be required to have a sprinkler system in that home?
With students, that's a good question. I think it goes back to those demonstrated health and safety standards. So I do believe that a group home with that many, or I would call that a roommate home, not a group home, because students aren't covered by the Fair Housing Act. A roommate home, it would depend on how that's classified under the International Residential Code. If it were under the IBC and it's like an R3 or R4 occupancy, then it would have to have a sprinkler system. But that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head.
And
But that's where I would look. It's a code.
Is I've got a client that has a 6-bed assisted living, and she can't go up to 8 without getting sprinklers. And so this makes me wonder, well, what if there was 8 people living in the house next door? Would they be required to get sprinklers?
Vern, who
Yeah,
who requested the sprinklers though? Who said that they had to have sprinklers?
Well, in order for her to increase and pass fire department for the increase, she has to have sprinkler system.
Was it the county or was it the state, or that's what I'm asking?
I'm not sure. She has 6. I said, why don't you bump it up to 8? And she said, because then I have to put in a sprinkler system.
That doesn't sound right. No, yeah, that's weird.
Well, actually, I think because with the population, because we have a more fragile population,
Sure,
I think it would come under, it would be an R4 occupancy under the International Building Code, which does require a sprinkler.
Okay.
I do have a question. I have a home in Fort Collins as well, and we're due for our license renewal, and we're an 8-bed facility. Am I able to, and I was listening to what you're saying, so I know you may have answered part of this already. Am I able to just renew it, requesting that I have now a 10-bed home instead of an 8-bed home? But then there was something with zoning that I might need to double check on or get signed off on. So I don't know if you can help me with understanding that.
Yeah, I think the good, and we're developing practice now because it's so new, right? So with your license with the state, you would need to apply for the additional residence. So you need to bump up your license. I think it would be good practice just to notify the city and say, hey, I've been approved for 8. Given the new Home Act, I'm now going up to 10. And I do think when you apply for that increase with CDPHE, you're going to have that zoning form filled out. So that's what I'm doing with the other clients, is sending that zoning form to the city to get their sign off and say, hey, here's the form, please sign it because I'm going to request an increase to my license.
So that zoning form, is that somewhere where I'd be able to find that change? Because we've never had to change anything on ours, so.
It's in the licensing packet from
Okay, it's in that.
CDPHE.
So for any change that would be, that's when I would send it, because I've never had to have somebody sign it before, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the person who I would send it to, would that be on the form, or is that just on the zoning and planning committee or something for this, for the city or the county of Fort Collins, because I'm in the county?
Oh, so you're not in the county you're in,
I'm in the county. I'm in Larimer County.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Larimer County, sorry. See, the caffeine, I know it's Larimer County, but I need my cup of caffeine. Yeah, so you'd have to go to the county planning department.
Okay. Okay.
And the county, so Fort Collins, the city of Fort Collins has changed its code. The county has not, to my knowledge.
Okay.
It hasn't popped up on my Google News reader. So if you get any pushback on that, give us a call. We can help you with that.
Okay. Okay. And then kind of a question for Vern on this as well. Does this also potentially increase our business pricing for, in the future when we're looking at selling, by being able to have it listed as a 10-bed home instead of an 8-bed home?
I would say yes. One of the, not the only one, but one of the factors that we look at in pricing is price per bed. So the more beds you have, let's say price per bed on a house like yours averages 85,000, 90,000, something like that. And I don't know what the exact number is, because it can vary. I've seen it depending on private pay or Medicaid, anywhere from 75 to 125, or even 135, or 150. Again, it varies so much, but it is a factor that would be looked at. So, okay, if the average price is 85,000 or 100,000 per bed, 2 more beds can certainly increase the value of that operation. It's only one of the factors, because of course your seller discretionary earnings is going to be the true number that is going to be looked at by the bank for the value. But 2 more beds, what's that do to the bottom line? You have no more expenses involved in that other than food. It's a huge difference. That could double your bottom line in essence.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
I think we have a hand raised from Steve Yates, Mr. Fire Sprinkler. And thank God you're on, Mr. Fire Sprinkler, because sprinklers are always confusing, and I'm definitely not an expert. It looks like you are.
Yeah, so you were talking about 6 beds versus 8 beds versus 10 beds. First of all, can you hear me? Because I've never used Zoom. So
We can hear you, Steve.
Yeah.
okay, good. So 6 beds comes into an R3 in most areas. Well, it comes into an R3, and hopefully I'm saying this right. And you don't have that requirement of the fire sprinklers until you hit the R4, and that's when you start getting into the 8 beds. And a lot of this is state requirements, not local requirements. And then the other thing you have to really think about, and a lot of folks are missing it right now, is your type of residence you're going to have. Are they a condition 1 or a condition 2? And that will depend upon greatly on what type of sprinkler system you have to have installed in the place. So hopefully that answered some of the questions.
Good stuff, Steve. I've been meaning to
And
reach out. Sorry,
Yeah,
Steve,
and by condition 1 and condition 2, maybe you want to explain that a little bit.
Oh, okay. Condition 1 is somebody that can self-preserve. So the alarm goes off. They say, it's a fire sprinkler alarm. I need to stand up, get out of bed, no help, no prodding, no verbal commands, get my pants on and get out the door. Okay. That's condition 1. You go to condition 2, it's someone that needs some sort of assistance, getting out of bed, verbal assistance, or even physical assistance, wheelchairs, walkers, that sort of stuff. And when you do that, you have to go to, basically you have to have a fire line. You can't do a pump and tank type of situation. So it adds some more cost to the system, but now you can have those condition 2 residents. And if you have a lockdown facility, it's going to be the same sprinkler system as a condition 2. So hopefully that helps.
Cool.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to go back to something that Audrey said too, and I do think it is very exciting that we can increase our occupancies, and that's what I do for people, and we really want to make these homes financially viable so that we can create more housing opportunities for people with disabilities. That being said, like Audrey mentioned, we don't want to have an overcrowding situation, so we have to be responsible with this new tool. And there's lots of homes like Sioma's, which is huge and can accommodate lots more people. And others that I've seen, maybe not. So we just have to be responsible about this for our residents and not make the pendulum swing back in the other direction where they start putting more restrictions on us. Steve, did you want to say something?
No, I'm trying to figure out how to shut the hand off.
Oh,
Oh, we'll just keep waving at you.
yeah.
Well, this is really interesting stuff. I think that we're going to see a lot of activity, not only in the assisted living space, but in the sober living and the shared housing, for students and divorcees, or however, they seem to be a big part of the shared housing space, from what I've been told. So I think this is really interesting. It's going to be a big change and probably will help the housing crisis that we have a little bit. Can't hurt it. We'll see. I don't know. You end up with 10 people in the house next door, and then you'll be the NIMBY, especially if it's a bunch of college students.
That's the thing.
Really,
Parking is going to be an issue, not for our assisted living homes, clearly, but for these student homes, parking is going to be an issue. So it'll be interesting.
it really will be interesting to see how people respond to your letter, Michelle. That I wish I could be on the wall and just watch and listen. I mean, just to, hear what happens. I mean, and it will be interesting to see how the media plays into this too. I mean, I'm sure that they could have some really big stories with this one. And it's been a quiet bill that passed. I mean, other than coming, this has been great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I love what you said at the end, that we need to be responsible, period. Or it'll go backwards. We'll have tons of restrictions again.
So true.
Thanks,
Okay.
Vern. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions for Michelle?
I'll buy you a cup of coffee soon.
Well, thank you, Michelle. As always, a wonderful presentation and very informative. We sure do appreciate it. So we always wrap up our meeting with haves and wants, and this is an opportunity for you to address the whole group. If you have something or want something that maybe the group needs or could help you with, then please feel free to speak up and let us know what it is that you have. If you have a service that might be valuable, Steve Yates, Mr. Fire Sprinkler, to the group, then feel free at this moment to express to everybody who you are and what you're doing.
Okay, my name's Steve Yates. Obviously, it says it on the screen. We've been installing fire sprinkler systems in assisted livings for 17 years. In fact, that's the primary part of my business. And we probably service an easy 150 to 200 assisted livings. So it's kind of my specialty on what you guys need for, the life safety end of it. And a lot of times if somebody's looking at a house, it's one of my regular customers, I'll do this for Vern, I do this for a whole bunch of other folks. You just tell me what the house is, we'll go out, we'll take a look at it, and we can tell you, hey, this is going to be a great install, or you've got a lot of things that you have to think about that's going to drive your cost up. So you may or may not want to purchase that property. So there you go.
All right. And Steve, do you have your info in the chat screen there?
I didn't put my phone number. I gotta admit, I thought this was going to be pretty simple, but I can't figure out how to turn that hand off. My phone number, if you want it, it's 303-720-9817. That's 303-720-9817. And then if you want to email me, it's steve@mrfiresprinkler.com. steve@mrfiresprinkler.com.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Yes. So James Miles, I answered Michelle's question. I wanted to make first the statement that if any of you have not used Michelle and you have any legal questions, whether you're in Indiana or not, she has been an invaluable resource. I'm sure Brian has as well, but I've interacted mostly with Michelle. My want is something that Michelle actually encouraged me to do, and that is I'm in the middle of a lawsuit and have half my building built right now, and there was an injunction. The neighbor is a NIMBY lawsuit, and unfortunately the state courts have not protected us in this particular situation. They don't seem to care about the Fair Housing Act at this point, and we've had some terrible decisions which may impact the state of Indiana as a whole, all of the cities and counties. Fortunately, they are on board with our amicus as we're going to the state Supreme Court or requesting the transfer. But if this ruling stands, may be able to be used, and Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it may be able to be used by other states as case law to kind of bring on lawsuits against homes like ours elsewhere. So I bring this up because, I've been spending a lot of money on this litigation, and I want to make sure that we get this solved and that this law does not stay on the books. And so I do have a GoFundMe page, and so that's kind of my want. I hate to ask, but I have a want out there, and I did put my GoFundMe in the list. Any little bit can help just kind of make this process a little bit easier for me, so that when I do win the lawsuit, I still have money to be able to open my home. But I just wanted to throw that out there, and really appreciate everything that Michelle and everybody in the RAL Academy and RAL National Association has done. It's been a great 5 years, even though it's been a tough 5 years.
Thank you, James. And I would invite you to put that on our Facebook page as well.
Okay.
It is focused toward the assisted living space, and they will have they will feel for you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say James has been fighting the good fight. We did everything right in getting planning approval. The Indiana in his area had a zoning code that discriminated against people with Alzheimer's. It allowed some group homes, but not others, which of course is a violation of the Fair Housing Act. But the city agreed and granted reasonable accommodation. He got his permit, started building, and then the neighbors sued, and the courts got confused because we're in state court and not federal court, unfortunately. So yeah, it's been an odd situation in Indiana, and hopefully we'll get it rectified at the Supreme Court level.
Wow. Okay, any other haves or wants this evening? Going once, going twice.
Hey, Vern, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Raymond.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I joined the meeting a little bit late, but we are hosting an event in Denver talking about the co-living, rent by the room and using that as an exit strategy. That's what my want is. I'm looking for more single family units that I can add bedrooms in. So if anybody comes across any sweet deals like that, definitely think of Ray.
Okay, Ray, did you put your info into the chat screen?
No, but I will. I will right now.
Okay, and I'll take this opportunity to remind everybody, in order to save the file, where you would be putting the info in. Let's see if I can find this. So it's now a little icon next to the smiley face. And if you click on that icon, it allows you to save the file. So again, everybody that you met tonight, networked with, just click on that little file folder looking icon to save the chat screen. It usually creates a folder on your computer under Zoom, right, with the meeting information, and then there's a text file in there. But you might be able to save it to a specific spot if you'd like as well. Well, thank you everybody for attending tonight, and it's been a wonderful and informative evening with you, and we hope to see you guys next month. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to leave it open for some more networking if you want to network amongst yourselves, and we'll close it up when there's no more activity going on. And until then, see y'all later.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Vern.